And so that TikTok video launches this career where people call you the female Andrew Tate, people call you the white female Kevin Samuels.
Welcome back to Ran-DomU. It's go time.
Optimus, maximize!
Today we have Jason Coonlock and JustPearlyThings, two different people who would sell their family just to make an extra dollar. I'm apologizing now for the microphone issues, as I know the sound is sounding a little bit off. Something happened to this microphone, so I don't know. Help. Now look, I know Jason Whitlock all the way back from his time at ESPN when he was on the Sports Reporters, and JustPearlyThings now from my time of just watching her here on YouTube. Now, I knew this was already going to be a softball interview before I watched it because I already know a couple things about Jason Whitlock. One, he loves white women. Two, he likes younger women. Now, I know he actually enjoys more of the sorority, sundress type of white girl, but Just Pearly doesn't quite fit that image. But when you watch a little bit of these clips, you'll see that he starts to try to picture her into that image. He starts to try to morph her from being a volleyball player into a girl who's doing her own philanthropy. Now, by the end of this interview, Jason Coonlock is absolutely smitten and just blown away by this high intellect that Pearl just never really displays in this entire interview. Just some goofiness. Now, by the end, he's just so blown away and convinced that her naivety is just innocence and purity of just a young woman, when really it just shows that she's really a dumbass, that she's proven on numerous occasions. But quite frankly, I don't think he had any of the receipts coming into this interview. He saw the clips that he wanted to see, and the ones that were going to justify him being all smitten over Just Pearly. Now, obviously, I'm not going to play the entire interview here, but I'm going to definitely play quite a few of the clips, and let's go ahead and go through it now.
Where did you come from?
Interview literally just started, and I'm already concerned. This just lets me know that the basic research wasn't done.
You're living over in London. How did you get there? Are you an American? Give me a little bit of your background.
He doesn't even know if she's American. Like, why are we even having this interview?
Wow. Okay, it's a very, very broad question, but I'll start from the beginning. So, I'm from a Chicago suburb, and I have 9 siblings. I'm from Chicago, and then I went to London to play volleyball. So I
want you to pay very close attention to how he's looking at Pearl. He's staring at her like he's that creepy dude in the corner of the bar at the middle of the night getting a hard on, sitting there looking at little girls on the floor.
So I was recruited to play volleyball, and I was supposed to actually go pro in the fall, but then the YouTube stuff took off, so I was like, I'll just do that.
And so you recruited out of high school to go play volleyball in London, or out of college?
Out of college. So, I worked sorry, go ahead.
No, and so where'd you play college volleyball at? You were very good high school volleyball?
This part of the interview is really boring. I'm going to go ahead and skip to something better.
Player and a scholarship volleyball player someplace?
Yeah, I played at Elmhurst College. It's a small school by Chicago.
Gotcha. And you studied journalism, history, English?
No, nothing. I studied
badminton, what?
No, economics and business administration.
And you wanted to do what?
I worked in sales for 2 years. And then I quit that I told my parents I was going to be a TikToker. And then I was recruited to play volleyball in England. And then I started the show there.
And you wanted to be a TikToker. You're this college athlete studying finance, and you hatched the dream of being a TikToker. Why did you want to be a TikToker? What inspired you to go that route?
Well, I had like a whole I've always just loved media. Like, I've always just really liked media, and I don't know. I loved Ben Shapiro. I loved Jordan Peterson. I loved Candace Owens was great too. So I just always liked media. But I had like one TikTok that went viral, and I just like quit my job. Women.
What was
it's like
that? What was that video?
It had nothing to do with what I'm doing now. It was my dad bought like a water slide from a water park. Yeah, and so he like built it in our backyard, and it was it's kind of a long story, but to make it short, basically there was a fight to get the water slide up with the town because they wanted to stop us. And we're true conservatives, you know what I mean? We're like, how can you tell us we can't put up our water slide? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I bought this water slide to have the ultimate amount of fun, and they were trying to stop us. And so we had to fight the town to put up our water slide, and yeah, then we did.
And so that TikTok video launches this career where people call you the female Andrew Tate, people call you the white female Kevin Samuels. How would you describe yourself?
It's a good question. I would just say that I run a show about relationships. You know, I love Andrew Tate, and I was a huge Kevin Samuels fan. I was on Kevin Samuels' show, so I take it as a compliment, but I think both of them do such good work. I feel like, yeah, it's a compliment.
So were you on Kevin Samuels' show just as someone that called in, or were you already a bit of a personality and he invited you on the show?
No, I just called in one day.
So this is what is so fascinating about you is that...
Please elaborate. I'd really like to know what is so fascinating about Pearl. I mean, earlier in the part that I cut out, she was talking about how her TikTok video that was pretty much made by her dad and her rich, entitled family has pretty much propelled her to the point she is now. That's the only reason she can even move to London to begin with. So there's nothing really fascinating about her calling into a Kevin Samuels show. Like, all she did was call in.
Whoa. Is that people watching you, listening to you, is like, this is the stereotypical suburban white girl in America. How does she even know about Kevin Samuels? Why is she even watching Kevin Samuels? How did that connect? What sparked that interest?
Now, this is actually a very good question, because what would spark her interest into watching Kevin Samuels' show? Like, she was a, pretty well-off girl in a suburban area. Like, there was really no draw to his show for her.
Oh, he was hilarious. He would just like, I mean, he would just like dunk on these chicks all the time. They were so nutty. I was like, this is so funny.
Who are these chicks? I think we all know who these chicks are. At this point in time, though, she has to protect her image. And I guess Coonlock doesn't really realize that.
I was like, this is so funny. And I thought his stuff was really helpful, to be honest, and just like learning how men think. So I thought it was helpful as a chick. But I'll tell you, the first show I saw of his, I was triggered. I was absolutely triggered. Not when I called in. I was post-triggering. But he was talking about high-value men.
Like, he is so into her conversation and her speaking right now. It's almost sickening.
Oh my gosh, my dad's all those categories. And then he was like, high-value men cheat. I was like, what? I was like, I was triggered. I was like, my dad does no such thing. But, then I kept watching his content because I was kind of like hooked. And then I just thought it was really good.
This is really frustrating to consume on a level of, when she speaks, she just sounds like a college student that has no experience in real life at all. She just speaks in endless sentences. She just rambles on and on and on. She just doesn't stop talking. And it's just like, she's not smart. She's just a ditzy girl who's just out here on YouTube and grifted and made a bunch of money. I'm not really sure how much money there really is, because it seems like she's closing up shop now and trying to get back to America. But just like 1,000-pound sisters, you always have some weak-ass brothers out there who's willing to simp and just suck up and kiss ass to these ugly to below-average white women. Now, this comes from a person who likes white women, but, I mean, find you a pretty one. I mean, there's better ones out there than just busted things. Now, my previous statement wasn't say I only like white girls. I like all girls. I'm just saying I don't discriminate.
And so you start out kind of TikToking about nothing, and it seems like you have over the past year, maybe even the past 6 months, like discovered like, no, this is my lane. This is what I'm leaning into. As it relates, and here in the past few months, you've been very critical of the feminist movement. And I've heard you already mention that your family is conservative, and you're, I have to assume, conservative. And so I'm wondering, were you familiar with Rush Limbaugh at all? And does that help?
For those who don't know Jason, Rush Limbaugh is his hero. He's his Freakazoid, his Optimus Prime, his Miles Morales, his Huey Freeman, his Iron Man, Peter Parker, any of those.
Help explain any of your anti-feminist views?
No, I've heard his name a lot. I listened to Rollo Tomasi a good amount. And I think he kind of came from that school of thought, because I've heard of Rush Limbaugh.
And for those who aren't aware, Rollo Tomasi is the guy who advised guys who are in their early 20s if they wanted to become a high-value band fast, they should snip their balls.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
Now, let's make sure we don't forget that he made this suggestion without considering this.
You have no idea the physical toll the 3 vasectomies have on a person.
But I've never actually listened to his stuff. Sorry, I don't know him. But I've heard the name, but no, I don't listen to his stuff. No, okay, I actually think I'm more conservative than most conservatives. I think I'm like an extremist. Yeah.
Okay, that seems a bit much, but I'm still going to be in your DMs later.
I would think many people over the past couple of months would agree with that when you start talking about taking away the right to vote for women. And
Yes.
It's like when you first say that, it makes your mouth drop. But then when someone like me thinks about it, it makes total sense.
Coming from someone who worshipped Rush Limbaugh like he was L. Ron Hubbard, yeah, it would make sense.
It really does. I wrote a piece 6-7 months ago about that what we've done with the vote is we've disempowered the family, and that women used to not vote because the vote actually represented the family. Now the vote represents individuals. And so, I read your tweets and
Now look, I don't know how everyone who's watching this video feels about this stuff, but I feel like the individual vote is better. Back in the day, you know that vote was pretty much swayed by the husband. Whoever the man was in the house, that was the vote. The women didn't have an actual say. I mean, let's be real. So when they're trying to make this point about this team decision, there was no team decision. There was no man and woman coming together, no husband and wife joining forces to make this decision. It was just a man's decision.
and see some of your videos, and I'm like, hold on, this woman is really well researched and has a conviction to her beliefs that I think some people are underestimating. And it makes me, and not in a disrespectful or suspicious way, but just in like wanting to know way, is there someone mentoring you, helping you, or is this all just 26-year-old Pearl doing her own research and talking with her own friend group? And
now look, it's still early in this interview, and this became really hard to watch as it kept going. Because I'm like, this dude did no research. She stated all this in previous interviews numerous times.
Just leaning into her worldview.
I wish I could find a friend group that didn't think women should vote. That would be the best friend group ever. No, okay, it's just like a rabbit hole. Like, once you go down it, okay? Because I first started researching the anti-suffragettes, right? And I found out only 5% of women like wanted to vote, and I thought that was weird. And then I started thinking, like, what are women better at than men? I've been researching for months. I can't think of anything. Yeah, and it just is like a rabbit
Even Whitlock was like, ew, what?
hole. You start to look up, like, because then I was like, do men pay the majority of the taxes? I was like, oh my gosh, they do. They do the majority of the infrastructure. They're the majority of the military. I was like, every business that we need in society, they run, which I've heard from, a couple different people.
Just curious, who set it up that way?
But then I realized they pay the majority of the taxes. We're the ones in debt. And I realized that the liberal women were the ones that all the politicians are catering for because, okay, I'm sorry. I know this is a long-winded answer, but I started doing a divorce documentary. And I couldn't believe all these guys that were just getting screwed over in court. It was crazy. These men, I read texts of men that the women was trying to get the man to hit her so she could get a free lawyer. Crazy. She's still got primary custody. So I'm like, why is this whole system discriminating against men? Why is there this Me Too problem? Why is there this problem of like these false accusations, these HR departments that are catering towards the women, all these grants that are catering towards the women, all the schools that are catering towards the women? Like, why do we have this whole system built towards women?
Somewhere in the middle of all that nonsense, she came to the conclusion that women shouldn't vote. I'm not really sure how she came to that. Earlier, she was talking about liberal women is what all the politicians are trying to get. Like, are you talking about, Republicans, Democrats, left, right, conservatives, liberals? I mean, who really wanted those votes? Because you only mentioned one side of it, liberal women. Then she just pivoted off of that because she realized she doesn't really do politics.
The vote. Because women vote, and none of the politicians can win without the women voting. And that was how I came to that conclusion.
Are you religious? That was the other question that has floated across my mind. Are you a Christian? Are you a believer?
So I'm a Catholic, but I would say I'm maybe like a once a monther. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't put myself in like the best, Catholic, but I'd say like, once a month I'll go to church.
She doesn't go to church, neither does he, neither does Andrew Tate, neither did Kevin Samuels, neither does half the people in the manosphere. None of these people who speak all these godly rhetorics actually go to church. You need to live by God, but they never actually go to church. They don't read the Bible. Andrew Tate was in an interview the other day with Tucker Carlson talking about God. I thought he was Muslim. He never mentioned Allah, not one time. You must live by faith and live by God, while repressing others and letting no one stand in front of you in your path while you're on your purpose and your mission. But women must be submissive. None of it makes any sense. And this interview could have been so much better, but he didn't counteract any of the questions or any of the things that she was saying. He never came with a rebuttal. He just keeps letting her talk. Like, he doesn't ask any tough questions. Because as we saw in one of my previous videos with H3, she just bombed. He asked her some simple questions and she just melted, like Alex Mack.
So I don't know where that makes it fall.
Well, I'm just wondering, a lot of things you say are consistent with a biblical worldview, but I never hear you talk about God. And that's what made me say, well, how could she know these things and believe these things so strongly if she doesn't have a biblical worldview? But I guess you can, or maybe you do. Look, when I was your age, I grew up in the Baptist church, Protestant, and was off into the world and having success and didn't go to church, didn't read my Bible, but I had grown up in the church. And I didn't realize until I got much older, like, oh, the reason I think all of these things are because of my religious upbringing. That I had a biblical worldview even though I was not a practicing Christian. And so part of me looks at you and thinks that she doesn't know it, yet, but she has a very biblical worldview, and the truth that you're looking for, you're going down these rabbit holes, they're all in the Bible. You don't have to look much further in the Bible. I'm not telling you to believe that now. I'm telling you that as you continue to search for the truth, you're going to figure that out.
Yeah, I agree. I did 12 years of Catholic school.
And how do you feel about all the blowback that you seem to be getting? You've upset a lot of women by saying they're not as hot at 35 as they are at 25. And that's one of the things that you say that I actually quibble with a little bit. I don't think a woman reaches her full beauty peak until her 30s, but that's just a small disagreement.
Well, the way Pearl's been thirsting around on the internet, I could see her pretty much getting a BBL by the time she's 30. And considering she's already 26 going on 37, I think she needs to hurry up and figure something out.
The overall gist of what you're saying, I think is true, but how do you feel about, and that's the other thing that impressed me, how you kind of stand in the pocket and don't back down from your critics, but how are you dealing with all the criticism that goes along with having such strong opinions?
Oh, I think it's funny. That was the funniest week on Twitter ever. All these ladies tweeting me their pictures. Yeah, I mean, the critics, I just think it comes with the territory. If you're going to be on the internet, you're going to be criticized.
This is clearly a person who does not speak what she actually believes. She is trolling you, and she is trolling many of you. And now she is drifting onto your platforms just so she can get some more attention. The worst part about it is y'all are taking the bait.
But back to the beauty thing. It doesn't really matter if you think women are the most like beautiful in their 30s, because like from a fertility point of view, men are like biologically predispositioned to like younger women. They've even done it on like scent tests.
I just like how she just dismisses the fact that she's talking to a man right now and just decides to say, oh, y'all are biologically wired to be like this. Though he does substantiate her point, but the point being is like, come on, you are talking to a dude now. This is also where the interview starts to take a kind of a weird turn.
I certainly am aware that, you know, men like younger women, and I'll plead guilty to that. And, you know, my dating history speaks to all of that. But you've hit women in their funny bone. I think you're telling the truth, but is that truth important enough to express because it perhaps prevents women and others from dealing with the perhaps more substantive truths that you talk about?
Oh, I think it's really important we know we get uglier with age. I think women would be married sooner if, you know, we realized that at 35 we're not hot. As hot, sorry, 35-year-olds, as hot.
So I gotta be delicate with how I unpack this.
He's got to take his time because all these regurgitated Kevin Samuels points have got him aroused. So he's got to find a way to speak around it.
You're a former athlete. You're 6 foot tall. Yes. There are all these standards of beauty that people, well, she's a redhead and blondes are hotter and blah, blah, blah. And so when you make that statement, it makes people question your standard of beauty. I got a follow up to this question or point I want to make about this question is why I'm asking. But how do you respond to the people that say, well, Pearl's not hot enough to be making that point?
Well, my hotness doesn't dictate the hotness of the market. So it's like, I always say, I think I'm an average looking chick. I can live with that. It's like, I don't care. But it's the fact that if you're a 5 today, you'll be a 4 in 10 years. If you're a 7 today, you'll be a 6 in 10 years. Like and the funny thing is that tweet, I didn't say ugly. I said uglier. I did not say, I actually think the original tweet was, no, you're not better looking at 35 than 20. It was something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. I never said there's no beauty at 35. I just said there's less.
But I could have swore on numerous occasions you have stated that high-value men don't want women at 27 or older, which means they're going to be outside of their prime with multiple bodies on them. You're not pure. You're not a virgin. You're none of that. So it's looking like you're about to have to start diving into the lower tier.
Which used to be common sense. Like they would say, make sure you get married young. They'd be like, what do they call you in China? It's like a leftover woman. At 30, you're like a leftover woman.
So, does that put any pressure on you in terms, you're 26, you're not married, do you feel pressure to get married soon?
Yes, I do. I'd like to get married soon.
Now look, I will applaud her for being honest here. I mean, she has been thirsting for a while now, so at least she's being honest.
So here's an observation or realization that you've actually helped me come to, and this relates to your own beauty. And keep in mind, I'm certainly old enough to be your dad, and I'm not trying to flirt with you or hit on you. I'm talking to you like a dad would talk to his daughter. There's a beauty that comes from innocence and purity. And again, I'm talking to you like a dad talking to his daughter.
Because when I give you this creepy message, I just want you to know I'm your father. Not someone who's going to be following your location on Snapchat later tonight.
You emote innocence and purity.
Holy shit.
And it makes you more attractive. No different than masculinity in a man, confidence in a man makes him more attractive. People don't recognize, and one of the things you're arguing and talking about when you talk about body counts for women and how they've adopted a whore's mentality, they're undermining their beauty by sacrificing their innocence and purity.
You are talking to a woman who is not pure. You're talking to someone who has bodies, multiple bodies on them, self-admitted. So what are we talking about here? My God. Now look, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and release this first part. There's a part 2 of this that will come out later. If this gets up to 500 views, I'll go ahead and release the second part. Not a whole lot. Hopefully we can get up to at least 50 likes on the video. Hopefully we can get up to 800 subscribers here soon. That's the next goal. We're getting close. And thanks, and hopefully you like the content. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you did. And I'll be hollering at you soon. Peace.